Here we are for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the fifth round of the 2025 Formula One World Championship. Jeddah represents a unique challenge on the calendar, not only for its average speed, over 250 kilometers per hour, which makes it the fastest street circuit in the championship, but also for the complexity of the layout itself, 27 corners, over 6 kilometers in length, and a continuous sequence of medium-high-speed direction changes. On such a technical track, where drivers brush the walls at over 300 kilometers per hour, the setup is crucial and can make the difference between a perfect lap and an irreversible mistake. The key word is just one: aerodynamic efficiency. It is not enough to have low-drag cars to gain on the straights. It is also necessary to generate a lot of downforce in the more technical sections. Rear downforce is medium-low, but the challenge is all about balance. Cars must be able to produce vertical load with low resistance, while maintaining stability in cornering and direction changes. Many confuse efficiency with simply reducing drag, but in reality, it's about maximizing the load generated relative to resistance. In Jeddah, the car's floor does a lot of work. Every setup variation or ride height adjustment can radically alter performance as well as driver confidence. Fundamental when, to maximize performance, especially in qualifying, drivers skim the walls corner after corner. In this sense, in the first 4 races, we've already seen significant differences between teammates. Charles Leclerc is clearly more at ease than Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. As for McLaren, Oscar Piastri has shown much more confidence behind the wheel than Lando Norris. When it comes to Red Bull, comparisons with Max Verstappen are almost pointless. The suspension setup, as on every F1 track, will be decisive in best tackling the central snake section and all the quick direction changes of the layout. At the front, stiffer suspension is preferred, very similar to what we saw at Suzuka. The reason is clear: the stiffer the front end, the more precise the car is in direction changes. This ensures a stable aerodynamic platform and reduces body roll, avoiding air spills into the Venturi channels that would compromise the floor's performance and downforce generation. At the rear, on the contrary, a slightly softer setup is preferred. This helps maximize acceleration phases coming out of slow and medium speed corners like 13, 17, 24, and especially turn 27. At this exact point on the track, it's crucial to get on the throttle as early as possible to take advantage of the long straights and defend or attack in the drag reduction system zone. Surely, a quicker damper compression setting at the rear also helps a lot, allowing the driver to apply throttle faster and more confidently. On the other hand, this way, weight transfer to the rear of the car happens more quickly after braking. In short, as always, even mechanically, finding the right compromise will be crucial. Once again, it's important to talk about ride heights in F1. The extremely smooth asphalt of the circuit allows teams to lower the cars significantly, thus increasing aerodynamic efficiency and reducing drag. However, attention must be paid to 2 critical points on the track: turns 10 and 23, where the curbs are higher. In these corners, drivers attack the curbs aggressively, optimize the racing line, and get on the throttle early. If the F1 car is too low, there is a risk of scraping the plank, causing instability and a sudden loss of downforce, as well as excessive skid wear, which can lead to penalties, as Ferrari unfortunately knows very well. In Jeddah, the differential also plays a very strategic role. The sequence of fast corners and the need for a stable platform both on entry and exit make it essential to work on certain parameters, such as diff entry, used to be adjusted for natural car rotation without causing understeer. Diff mid, used to maintain constant traction through long sustained corners, and diff exit, used crucial to avoid wheel spin and to fully exploit hybrid power out of turns 13, 17, and 27. Hybrid power management will certainly be an area that F1 teams have worked on back at the factory. In fact, on a track where there are few braking zones, mainly in turns 1 and 27, energy recovery from the MGU-K is limited. The MGU-H, which recovers thermal energy from the turbine, will therefore take center stage. Teams have planned when and how much to recharge in order to maximize attack and defense phases on the long straights. It is an often underrated element, but it can make a huge strategic difference in the race. In conclusion, Jeddah is a circuit that does not forgive. Driver confidence, aerodynamic efficiency, and an extremely precise setup are the keys to unlocking performance. The margin for error is minimal, and the wall is always just around the corner. Whoever manages to find the perfect balance between stability and speed will be able to make the difference in both qualifying and the race. For Ferrari, words are chosen very carefully ahead of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. In his 7th season in red, Charles Leclerc knows that it takes very little to spark excessive hopes, especially after a start to the championship that has so far fallen well short of expectations. For the Monegasque, the picture of the current pecking order is clear. He explained that they were 3/10 behind McLaren, that Ferrari's performance was similar to Mercedes, and that Red Bull had been a bit more inconsistent so far, which made it harder to have a clear picture of their potential. With that established, Charles Leclerc saw Jeddah as a track where the technical upgrades introduced in Bahrain might offer something more than they had in Sakhir, a weekend in which Ferrari had again missed out on the podium. Charles Leclerc believed that a podium finish had been possible without the safety car. He stated that the team was making progress in the right direction and added that he couldn't say whether they would be able to make it onto the podium that weekend, but that he had faith in their chances. He noted that they had taken slightly different directions in recent races, something he particularly liked, and that if they continued to find improvements in that specific area, he hoped they could secure their first podium. However, he added that his ambitions went further, explaining that the podium wasn't really the target he liked to aim for. His goal was to get back to winning. The 27-year-old believed that considering the characteristics of the track, Ferrari should take a small step forward compared to what had been done in Bahrain. He pointed out that the numbers they had hoped to see in Sakhir with the upgrade were the ones they had actually seen, and that they expected something more in Jeddah. In the Maranello team's garage, no one wanted to hear talk of a compromise season, and Charles Leclerc served as the spokesperson for that position. He explained that while they were not at the level they had wanted from the start of the season, the championship was very long and they wouldn't give up. They would keep pushing until the end. The Monegasque driver expressed his belief that a project could progress in parallel with another, stating that they were trying to do their best on both fronts. He added that if the chances of winning the championship were to disappear completely, then it would probably make sense to focus entirely on the 2026 Formula One car. Charles Leclerc has always enjoyed the Jeddah track, and when a driver felt confident on a circuit, he was willing to take a few more risks, something the Ferrari driver confirmed when asked about the track's safety standards. He said it was one of his favorite tracks of the season and added that he had always loved street circuits in general. He considered them challenging, and with the high speeds reached in Jeddah, he described the experience as really fantastic. The Monegasque remarked that there had been some changes that he believed had improved the track, but that if it had to be rated in terms of danger, it was obviously one of the most demanding circuits for a driver. Charles Leclerc acknowledged that courage on a flying lap could make the difference, but emphasized that it was a challenge he enjoyed. He stated that safety was always something to keep in mind and work to improve, but he had the feeling that the freedom to improve some tracks was limited. In particular, on a circuit like Jeddah, where the walls were so close and the speed so high, there would always be an element of danger, as was also the case in Monaco, which he believed could be dangerous in certain spots, though he didn't think there was much room to improve it.